Winners and losers from preseason week 2 right now on Fantasy Football Today Express. Adam Azer here with Dave Richard. We just did about an hour and 10 minutes on this topic, but one player we did not talk about was a guy who struggled a little bit against backups. Then he turned it on late in the second quarter.
You're talking slow, like you're on painkillers.
I like him a lot, but it wasn't a great performance for him. You know who I'm talking about?
I don't.
Caleb Williams. That offense really was stuck in the mud for a while against backups, against the Bengals backups. Mm-hmm. And it was disappointing after I was so excited about him. That throw he made to Odunze, though, was, you saw the talent there, the rushing touchdown. But that was all late in the half against more backups.
And it was improvisational, both of them.
Right, but it was not a good day overall, I'd say, for Caleb Williams. What did you think?
Maybe not, but the fact that he does those things off script constantly is a huge plus for him, Adam. That means that whenever he faces a defense that he can operate against and stay on schedule and, throw to the number one target, that's always going to be a good thing. But the fact that he can keep plays alive, he's got great mobility, he's got great downfield vision when he's on the run, and he can throw an accurate pass that way. And I've seen it from him, again, talking about minicamp and then training camp and then the preseason games and going back to Southern Cal. He did a lot of that stuff too. The rushing touchdown was from inside the 10. Yeah, I think that that's going to add value to Caleb Williams. So I'm not terribly worried about what happened in that preseason game against Cincinnati, knowing that the Bengals defense wasn't at full strength. I'm encouraged by what Caleb Williams can do when things break down, and things will break down frequently for this Bears offense. So I don't mind him as a top 14 type fantasy quarterback, not a top 12 guy. I think in our ADP, it's either he and Jane Daniels are like back to back. I don't remember who's ahead of who, but the fact that it's that close between those two blows my mind. I would rather have Daniels than Caleb Williams, but I do think Caleb Williams is absolutely worth drafting, worth beginning the season as a bench piece. And maybe even if you don't love your starting quarterback, if you get Dak, Purdy, Tua, and you pair him with Caleb, I think you'll be pretty happy. You'll eventually find a quarterback that you'll like by like week 3.
We didn't get into this on the long show, but what is your take on the Bills wide receivers? Because as I look at ADP, Caleb Williams is at 110th, Jayden Daniels is 111th, and Keon Coleman is also 111th. So he just popped into my mind here.
Yep.
Shakir, it doesn't seem like Shakir is playing in 2 receiver sets, but it doesn't seem like he's playing that much. This is a time when teams are auditioning their rookies a little bit here. So Coleman's been on the field a ton. I will say that I went back. I watched every route he's run so far in the preseason, and I actually see him getting open. I'm not a huge Coleman guy, but I see him getting open more than I thought and just not getting thrown to. I think Josh Allen will fix that because it's been a lot of Trubisky. And then, like, for example, he got open really nicely one-on-one on a slant pattern. If he caught it, it's a touchdown. He dropped it, and there was a safety coming. And this is a guy in Coleman that really struggled with contested catches in college. So that wasn't encouraging. But I actually been a little bit encouraged by how open he's getting, but discouraged by how unproductive he's been for the amount of time he's been on the field this preseason.
As soon as the Bills drafted him, they were really cautioning his progress. And now that we're starting to see him play in the preseason and get work with Josh Allen, I'm starting to get a little bit more hopeful. And you can still draft Coleman at a really good value. You can get him in round 8, round 9, round 10. And you've got a shot at having the number 1 wide receiver for Josh Allen. And this is a guy who does have physicality, who can win in the red zone. I'm hoping that we see a little bit more of that when the Bills have the ball between, call it the 10 and the 20, because we can't call him a red zone threat. You know what's going to happen when Buffalo has the ball inside the 10. It's Josh Allen and his legs. But I do think he's got a chance to lead the team in targets, catches, yards, and touchdowns. And finding a guy like that in that round 8, 9, 10 range is really good value for fantasy managers.
All right, we're going to take a break and talk about some of the big headlines and who are winners and losers based on the Jaylen Warren news, the Gardner Minshew news, the DeAndre Hopkins news after this on Fantasy Football Today. All right, we are back here on FFT Express. Dave, Gardner Minshew's the starting quarterback. Stock up or down for Davante Adams?
Stays the same. I never expected Minshew or O'Connell to be a huge booster to Davante Adams, but we've seen Davante Adams put up numbers before with inferior quarterbacks. We saw it last year. It was Jimmy Garoppolo for the beginning of the season, and it was Aiden O'Connell at the end of the season. And when he was with those guys at those times, his numbers were huge. Fingers crossed that he can get to 16 PPR points per game with Minshew. That's what Pittman had last year.
Yeah, I like it, I guess, just because Minshew's a more of a known commodity. But right, it's
I
not.
think O'Connell has better velocity and accuracy.
Oh yeah, Minshew's does not have a good arm.
Right, but his mobility and experience is going to theoretically help as well.
Yeah, it'd be interesting because getting the ball downfield has been a bit of an issue for him. And I wonder what that means for the ADOT for Adams. Adams has had seasons where he's been a low ADOT high catch guy, and he's had seasons like 2 years ago with Derek Carr where he had a whole bunch of long touchdown catches. So we'll see. Jaylen Warren, his injury could keep him out for week 1. Who knows? Maybe week 2. So your thoughts there on the Steelers backfield?
And we talked a lot about the Steelers offense and how bad it looked in their first 2 preseason games on the main show. I think we're going to see a dip for Jaylen Warren because people are going to show up on draft day. They're going to see the injury tag next to his name. They're going to see that he's questionable for week 1. And they're going to say, well, I don't want to take this guy. He might not be ready to start the season. Play the long game. And if you see Jaylen Warren falling into late round 9 or round 10, especially if catches count, I would take advantage of that dip. I would not take him with an early round 8 pick, which is where I was taking him before the injury.
Okay. And DeAndre Hopkins should be ready for week 1. So
it's another good guy to buy the dip on. I'm not sure if the world is caught up to Hopkins. I think they still see the injury tag, and they worry about him as the number 2 receiver. He looked pretty good last year when he played.
Any other big winners or losers that you want to talk about from week 2?
I made a big move going back to the Bears and Caleb Williams. I made a big move putting Rome Odunze ahead of Keenan Allen. I did not like that Keenan Allen couldn't separate from backup cornerbacks in Cincinnati. And Rome Odunze did separate and seems to be that guy that Caleb Williams looks for when a play breaks down. And you can go to that 45-yard catch that he had as an example of that. There were plays in minicamp where Odunze was that guy. And I'm going to bet on the more explosive receiver rather than the experienced older receiver, and hope that Odunze comes through and ends up with better numbers than Keenan Allen by the season's end.
All right, Dave Richard. Let's see. I'll give you one more thing here. How about the stinking Bengals backfield? I wish they would have played. I thought they were going to play their starters, and I still don't know who I should take first. I still take Zach Moss. Who are you on, Moss or Brown?
Moss is a little bit more boring, but he might end up being the right answer. I'm taking Chase Brown first because I think he'll have the opportunity to flash that explosiveness. I think he's got good juice in his movements. I think he can cut back well. And I think that those two might end up splitting first and second downs. And maybe Brown just gets the opportunity. I think they want him to take that opportunity and take the next step. So I'm drafting them both right around the same point in draft. It's that round 8 range, but give me Brown ahead of Moss.
That's Dave Richard. I'm Adam Azer. This is Fantasy Football Today Express. We'll talk to you tomorrow.